Obviously, none of us know the future, and sample preparation is constantly evolving. But where do you see the field of sample filtration evolving from here?
That's a really interesting question. The instrumentation itself is driving a lot of the need for increased quality and sample preparation. As the resolution of the instruments increases, and of course, that's driven by the need of the researchers themselves, but the resolution of the instruments increases, and that really causes us to have to respond. So we've done a number of things to keep pace with the demands. First, just an overall improvement of the materials. Our syringe barrel devices are 100% pure polypropylene, and they are in their natural color tone, which is a semi opaque white. The reason that's important is there is some very inexpensive commodity grade syringe filter product, which still is kicking around the market a little bit. And you'll see them, they're pretty easily identifiable because they're colored. And in its most basic form, you cannot dye polypropylene without creating an extractable issue. So these aggressive solvents, when they are introduced to the material, actually take away, wash away some of the dye that's on the surface of the polymer. One of the other things is several years ago, we incorporated ultrasonic welding into our manufacturing process. So we are actually welding the components using ultrasonic sound waves instead of any glues or adhesives. That's important because we don't introduce any of that into your sample. And then we're developing techniques and devices that help the researcher at the bench prepare the samples prior to syringe filters. So the category of syringe filters are generally considered absolute filtration. These are membranes that have a finite pore structure and they're welded around their circumference. They're a disc and they're welded around the circumference. So you can't get bleed through or leach around in the device. So your sample has to pass through the membrane. The opposing process is generally a more coarse filtration stage. So if you have a really heavily precipitated sample, cloudy, muddy, murky, think pond water, what is generally done is that sample will be passed through a Buchner funnel with a disc filter or a cone funnel with a fluted cone filter. And you get your initial clarification in that stage, and then that resultant, that effluent, that filtrate, you take and you pass through an absolute filter like a syringe filter prior to your analysis method. What we've developed is a device called the HandyPrep. And the HandyPrep, we just introduced that at PitCon this year. And the HandyPrep is a coarse filtration device. What it does is it incorporates several layers of depth filter media in a syringe barrel. And that replaces the step of the initial filtration stage in the coarse filtration part of your sample prep. And what's really cool about it is it's also compatible with syringe filters. So you could potentially do it all in one step. And talking about pre filtration, there's a huge category of syringe filters within our line that incorporate pre-filters in the device itself. So our forte, our expertise is glass microfiber, and we've been able to develop product where we incorporate a glass microfiber pre-filter prior to the membrane in the device. And what that does is it increases the loading capacity of the syringe filter so you can get larger samples through it. The downside to using a pre-filtered syringe filter is dead volume. So imagine you've got this porous sponge, essentially a complex matrix of fibers sitting above a membrane. It's absorbent. And so it's going to retain some of that sample that you've just pushed through. And so for years, I've been racking my brain thinking, how can I reduce the effect of dead volume in sample preparation? I know, go ahead. You can make fun of me later about this is what I sit around thinking about. But but your listeners and your viewers will definitely appreciate that. And so the Handy Prep, one of the byproducts of having the filter actually in The syringe barrel itself is the plunger compresses the stack of filtration media and squeezes out the dead volume into your sample. So there's much less sample volume lost to the process. It's a neat device.